Hi and welcome back to David Pattinson's Accused Friends. Today I want to do a video on my top 5 Britons that need to make a big step up during lockdown. I've done a video on the top 5 British heroes and the top 5 British villains of lockdown, and today I want to sort of make an appeal to 5 individuals to really make a step up and who could be doing a lot more than they are. So number 5 on my list is Piers Morgan. I'm a fan of Piers. I think he's a talented broadcaster, but he's been focused during this lockdown on the implementation of the lockdown policy rather than the policy itself. He prides himself on holding the government to account, but, he's not holding the government to account. He's, acquiescing on sort of small details of health policy and, looking after care homes and all that stuff's important. But when you got 65 million people under house arrest, that's the biggest story of the day. And I don't know if his job at ITV depends on him towing the government line. And, I know he's kind of a pragmatist. I'm sure if I was to speak to him on television and say, we have a law of innocent until proven guilty, and anyone who's placed under arrest has a right to a trial and all this sort of thing. And he'd say, well, look, David, we don't have time for trials. We don't have time for arrests. We just need people to be locked up in their homes right now. But so who among us has the right to decide what laws we follow and we don't? And I think if Piers really thought about that, he'd come to the right conclusion. I mean, he's a fair guy in my view, and he's a patriotic guy. And, I think if he just sort of thinks about this lockdown issue from a civil liberty point of view a bit longer, instead of just berating guests that come into the studio, he could be, a far more effective weapon in, preventing government lawlessness. So number 4 on my list is Prince Charles, and the royal family, it's kind of pretty much heresy to criticize the royal family, and I know that Prince Charles likes to do a lot of his politicking, behind the scenes. He's quite a political guy, he's quite politically involved. I remember last year he was out there at Davos telling everyone we had 10 years to save the planet, but if lockdown continues, we're going to have a lot less than 10 years just to save Great Britain, forget about the planet. And I think if he is doing stuff behind the scenes, trying to stand up for the civil liberties of the British people, it's not being very effective. And I think he could do with doing a bit more, well, a lot more really, behind the scenes to stand up to government tyranny. You just need to ask the Romanovs what happens to royalty under a tyrannical government. And, I think Prince Charles could be doing a lot more than he is, and I hope he starts making the step up. Number 3 on my list is David Starkey, and I like Starkey. He definitely presents himself as the sort of oracle of British history, and he's got a lot of historical perspective. And I saw a brilliant video of him online the other day talking about how the lockdown was solely a purpose, or solely a rationale of protecting the NHS, even though we blow the equivalent of 8 NHSs, in waste and, economic devastation. At least we're protecting the existing NHS right here. And it was a brilliant segment, but he was going on about complaining about, how his income's dried up because he can't get out there. But why doesn't he get on the phone to all the TV networks of the country and start giving the British people, as big an audience as possible, a real historical perspective of what happens to societies that, fall under government tyranny, under government lawlessness. And, I think his knowledge and wisdom is highly valuable right now. And I think he could be doing a lot more than he's doing. I'm sure he's got a nice house and a nice study to sit in, but I think he needs to get on the phone and get in front of as many cameras as possible and start making a much bigger step up than he's currently doing. So number 2 on my list is Nigel Farage, and no one has more respect for Nigel than I do, but he ran a Brexit campaign, an election, saying that, the Brussels and the EU were taking away our right to control our own lives, and that was wrong, and I totally agree with that. But if the British government's taken away our right to control our own lives, surely that's equally wrong. And I think, he'd probably say to me, look, David, I'm a private citizen. I'm trying to stay in the Brexit lane. We got this trade stuff coming down the line. But, there's a lot bigger problems right now. I want Brexit to happen. I think it's been, totally denied by the British government for far too long, even still to this day. But if 65 million Britons are under house arrest, if their civil liberties are being totally violated, Nigel Farage is someone with the gravitas and the kudos to stand up to the government. And, he's been out there in the English Channel and all this sort of stuff, exposing these migrant boats. The government knows these migrant boats are coming in all the time. A lot of the British people do. Illegal immigration has been out of control for many, many decades. But, in order to defend our borders, we got to be able to get out of our house. And I think Nigel needs to make a big step up. And, I hope he sees this video and can do that. So number one on my list is the Civil Liberties Trust of Great Britain. I don't know what the hell's going on in this organisation, but, heads need to roll. This is the biggest violation of civil liberties in Great Britain for 800 years. And, I heard these people are out there trying to organise some socially distanced breakfast. Whoever's in charge of that organisation needs to be fired immediately. I won't take the step of putting them on my villains list, but they're certainly doing a horror show of a job. I do more to defend British civil liberties in one video than these people have done since March. And, you go on their website and they're talking about, migrant rights. And, that's all well and good, but surely the rights of British citizens supersede those of migrants, especially when you're the trust of civil liberties in our country. I'm a big advocate for a public inquiry into the lockdown, with the government being held fully accountable for all their decisions. But as soon as that's done, we need a public inquiry into why the Civil Liberties Trust has failed us so much. Just as a quick tutorial for them, healthcare is not a civil liberty, it's a service. Social care is not a civil liberty, it's a service. And I just want to end with a few things that I want these people to get back focused on. Just stay in the lane of civil liberties and start getting results. Otherwise, you might as well pack up and go home. And the key things they just need to focus on: freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom from arbitrary arrest, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, and freedom of religious worship. Forget all the migrant stuff, forget all the social care stuff, forget the social distancing stuff. Just get back to work and start delivering results on behalf of the British people to get their civil liberties back. So I hope you like this video. Please subscribe, and thanks to everyone for watching.